Hi, class, Dr. Lindner. Let's just take a look at the blood supply and nerve supply of bone. So remember, around bone, we have the periosteum, and there are periosteal arteries that are accompanied by nerves, and they enter through they enter the diaphysis through what's called Volkmann's canals. So the periosteal arteries do accompany the periosteal veins. We have what's called a nutrient artery that enters the center of the diaphysis through a nutrient foramen, and the nutrient veins will exit through the same canal. The metaphysis and epiphysis, they also have their own arteries and veins. So if we look at the epiphysis, the metaphysis, and the diaphysis, you'll see that each section has its own. So in the epiphysis, you'll notice there's an epiphyseal artery and epiphyseal vein. In the metaphysis, there's a metaphyseal artery and a metaphyseal vein. In the diaphysis, this is where we have the periosteum, and you can see that the periosteum has its own periosteal arteries and veins. But through the periosteum, that's where the nutrient foramen starts to come in. It breaks through, and that nutrient artery ends up going through the center of the Haversian canal or the central canal of each osteon. And this is why when bones break, you get this pooling of blood called a hematoma. Okay, and that happens in the acute phase of a bone fracture. Bone, especially spongy bone, remodels itself throughout life in order to allow the skeletal system to adapt. So as you're walking, your proximal epiphysis, spongy bone, adapts to that type of force. Now, if you start running, it'll remodel and adapt to a different type of force. If you start throwing roundhouse kicks, then all of a sudden the femur starts to remodel even more. We want to make sure that we support the Wolff's Law, which is basically, most of us know it, if you don't use it, you lose it. The more physical stress that's put on the bone, the denser and the stronger it becomes. If you don't build it up in your youth, you are in trouble. I'm very concerned about the new generation of children that just stay on their devices and they're not out running, they're not out at the parks. I mean, I remember being a kid, we would climb trees, we would jump off trees, we were wrestling one another, we were running around the block, Ringalerio. It was a very, very physical childhood. And I just see less and less children being physical, unless, of course, they're involved in school sports and training. Wonderful, wonderful. Always make sure the body is in motion. When we come back, we'll talk about fractures and repair.